Hello, welcome back to the Saints Squad Show. I'm your host, Dylan Sanders of Saints Wire, and happy birthday, Taysom Hill.
This is former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore, and I know who will not be the starting quarterback for the Saints this year.
This is Darian Gray of Who Dat Dish, and just like the starters, I waited to the last game to show up.
It's the Saints Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad Show, starting now.
Howdy, Who Dat Nation, and welcome back to the Saints Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Saturday and Thursday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. And I think you can guess what we're going to be talking about. Probably a little bit of quarterback battle, a little bit of who else stood out, who's going to make the team. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, I told you all these Saturday episodes are going to be a little bit fun. We're going to have a rotating cast. I want to welcome Darian to his first episode of the Saints Squad Show. Darian's great, Locked On HBCU, Who Dat Dish. I'm super excited to have him. Welcome, Darian.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys had me on. I'm looking forward to doing it.
Yeah. So I think we should just jump in. The quarterback battle is now, I guess they might not have made their decision yet, but they're not going to be able to see any more of these quarterbacks. And let's start with Lance. Who won the job today, or did no one win the job today? How do you feel after this game?
Well, I mean, in my intro, I said I know who will not be the starting quarterback for the Saints, and no surprise, it's not going to be Jake Haener. I honestly, I feel like Spencer Rattler is still going to be the guy, but I don't feel like he did anything today that was overly great. Tyler Shough, I guess you could say, looked better today. He led a touchdown drive, but again, he did that touchdown drive against the second/third team Broncos defense. So you kind of have to take a little bit of context when it comes to his performance. I don't think he performed poorly. I think he probably looked the best in this game that he's looked all preseason, which is, what you want to see. I still just feel like Spencer Rattler is a little bit more ready. Does that mean that Spencer Rattler is going to be the starter the entirety of the season? No, absolutely not. But I think that Spencer Rattler has done enough throughout the offseason, into the preseason, and into these games to solidify himself as the starter. But if you're asking me the simple question, did anybody go out there and just win the job today? My answer is no. I don't think either of them went out and won the job today. If anything, I think they made it a little more cloudy from the outside, right? I think in the inside, they probably already know what they're going to do. But as an analyst perspective, former player and fan, I just watched the game, was kind of like, I don't really know. That's kind of where I'm at.
I think that's fair because, again, both these guys had their ups and downs. Rattler continues to be the more okay, I feel like we know what we're going to get with Rattler. Shough has this potential, but that potential comes with growing pains that you constantly see. So I do really think it is a little bit harder now than it even was a week ago. Darian, we don't know how you feel about the quarterback competition at all. So fill us in. How are you feeling now, and how do you feel entering the week?
Entering the week, I felt like Rattler had the highest high. I think that last drive against the Jaguars was probably the best that I've seen, or the best moment that I've seen from either one of these guys. So if you're going with the absolute best or the absolute high that we've seen, I'd probably say that it was Rattler. If you go with the middles, I'd probably still say that it was Rattler. And if you're looking at the lows, I still think that pick six is probably the lowest moment between the two quarterbacks. So if you take it from those three levels, I'd probably go with Rattler. And even if you didn't break it down like that, I just think watching through three games, this is probably Rattler's job for the time being. We can assume that it'll be ongoing throughout the season. If Shough would have started, I think you would have seen a longer leash because he's a rookie, second round, top 50 guy. I think you might have seen a longer leash with him. But with Rattler, it'll be interesting if he is the starter, which is what I expect. It'll be interesting to see what kind of leash he gets. This is how I felt coming in. Then walking out of this game, I just felt like Rattler kind of sustained his position. I would have loved to see Rattler run away with it, or maybe see Shough come from behind-ish and run away with it. But I just didn't feel like that happened for either guy. It just felt like everybody maintained their spot. And if I'm Spencer Rattler, that's a good thing, because I think me being positioned with the starters for the entirety of this game and not having an alternating rotation, but instead having more of a shift rotation where Rattler gets that first shift and then Shough gets the second shift, I think it leans towards Rattler being the starter coming in, and I don't think anything changed that going out.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like after now, especially after Rattler got this start, I feel like the conversation, I still see a lot of people talking like, oh, this guy played with this guy. Oh, this guy had this cast to play with. I feel like now that doesn't really have – you can't really have that conversation where they've all played with everybody. We've all seen how they play with everybody. And the thing is, we come out of it, everyone playing with everybody, pretty much even. And I feel like with it being even is where if I was making the decision and I'm not making the decision, doesn't matter what I think. If I'm starting a quarterback on week 1, I'm going with Shough. I feel like he has the potential. He has the higher ceiling. I think Rattler will be able to a better baseline, but Shough has that it factor that I think needs time to show. But if you start Rattler, you're not going to have that time with Shough to grow unless they start winning games, because by the end of the year, let's say Shough comes in, after 5 or 6 games and looks all right, has some potential, but you still have that bad record. You have the high pick. That's not going to stop them from drafting a quarterback. I feel like you really need to see what you have in Shough, because I do believe that there is a higher ceiling there. I don't see right now the benefit in waiting or taking time to make that decision, because Rattler hasn't looked much better than him overall. He had the better drive, but there just hasn't been enough separation for Rattler from me to be like, all right, I think we have to start Rattler right now.
Well, what you said there about Tyler Shough, right? Like him, us maybe not doing well early in the season with Spencer Rattler, then putting Shough in the game. I mean, I guess the same logic should apply then to Spencer Rattler with last season.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, we weren't doing well. He ended up starting late in the season. And by your logic, it wouldn't be fair to then bench him for somebody else, because then you can't really see what you have in him, right?
Well, it's not fair anyway. I'm just saying that's just how the thing kind of works. I'm not saying it's fair one way or the other.
Yes, but I'm just trying to apply the logic that you just gave to Tyler Shough to Spencer Rattler. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, because it's not apples to oranges here. It's apples to apples, because you said if Spencer Rattler is to start beginning of this season, then Tyler Shough can't get those extra reps. Well, that's exactly what happened to Spencer Rattler last year. Now, he was thrust in because of injuries and other things, but I just think it's not going to hurt Tyler Shough to not start week 1 or to not start early in this season. If we are a not very good team, which, newsflash, I think we should all want that. As much as we want our team to win every game and to go to the Super Bowl and win another Lombardi, the reality is that's probably not going to happen. And every game that we win is a potential for us to drop further in the draft. And so unless anybody believes that either of these two guys on our roster today are the guy for the next 10 years, which I don't think anybody believes that. Now, I know it's early, but yes, we could be in the hunt for another quarterback next season, and that's completely okay, because we should always be trying to improve the roster. But I do have to say something about quarterback competitions. In my opinion, there's not a single position that is affected more based upon who or what group that you're in preseason games more than quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can say, oh, the running back's playing with the second string or the third string offensive line, but the running back can still show play that can warrant them opportunities when it comes time to the regular season. Quarterbacks are the guys that have to deal with, okay, this game I'm in with this group of offensive linemen, but this center's not going to play. This tackle's only going to play one drive. And then you factor in the people that he's playing with at the skill position, which is ever changing. Okay, AK didn't get any reps in the whole preseason. We've got a bunch of different backs that come in that might have different timing. We've got different receivers that are coming in. Well, Shaheed's going to be out on this drive. Like it impacts the quarterbacks in a crazy, crazy way. And in turn, it impacts the way that they can be evaluated, not just from a podcast standpoint, but from an evaluation process for the scouts, the coaches, the front office. It's tough. So while we are seeing, the numbers or the turnovers or the touchdowns, there's a whole lot more that goes into that evaluation process. And so it might not be as cut and dry as, well, Spencer Rattler had the better camp. He might have been a little bit better in a preseason game. Shough showed flashes, but we're going to go with Rattler. I'm sure they have a whole line of different things that they're looking at as far as this evaluation goes that us on the outside have no idea about. But again, there's a lot going on for the quarterbacks, especially young ones that haven't had a whole lot of time in the league trying to, grab the bull by the horns and make sure that they become the starter for this team.
And I think that one of the things that you mentioned that was interesting is the 2026 draft, right? It unfortunately, even though we haven't begun the 2025 season, it does feel like that draft class and whatever quarterback that you're a fan of is kind of the cloud that kind of rests over the Saints season, because everybody's talking about what does Shough do? What does Rattler do? Who even starts? But they're also talking about who can the Saints get, because Lance is right. We're probably not going to be that good. And if we're not that good, you could be in position for a quarterback. And it makes me wonder, obviously, Kellen Moore and the staff wants to win this year. But at the same time, do you factor that in of, I have to get a concrete look of what Tyler Shough looks like in the regular season in order to make this move in 2026? Or is it, we're going to go with Rattler right now at the beginning of the season because we feel like he's ready at the moment? And then the third question after that would be, how many games do we need? Because I saw Spencer Rattler with 6 games, 6.5, because he did come in for that one game for Jake Haener, and it wasn't under great conditions. And I kind of felt like I couldn't get a full evaluation.
Right.
How many games does Tyler Shough need to play for you to have a full evaluation? How many games does Spencer Rattler need to play for you to have a full evaluation? Right? Because we wrote about this at Who Dat Dish, and I thought the worst case for the Saints quarterback battle going throughout not just this preseason, but the entirety of the year would be to not know what you have. I need to know either Shough or Rattler is a guy we think we can build around, or if it's a guy we don't think. But walking around with our hands up like, I don't know, that stops. That can't be the case in December. That can't be the case in January. And I just wonder how many games you need to see from each of them to walk around and say, I know exactly what I'm stepping into for the next draft.
Yeah, well, I think that if either of these guys, or both of these guys for that matter, you don't really know for sure, or you kind of get an idea of what it looks like or could look like. If they fall in love with if we have a top pick or one of the top couple picks and they fall in love with one of these quarterbacks in the 26th draft, it doesn't matter what they do in 2025. Honestly, it doesn't matter at all, because if Arch Manning happens to come out and we have the number 1 overall pick and Mickey Loomis and the scouting department loves him, they're going to draft him regardless of how well these other quarterbacks play, because they will see the potential of, okay, now we have our quarterback for now and the future. It's not a matter of, well, we're going to give this guy a chance and see if he's better than the other two. It will be, no, this is our guy. Now we have to figure out who's going to be our backup quarterback from there. So I don't think it's I think it's a win-win, right? Like you get a chance to see both quarterbacks this year. I don't think that the expectations are super high. I would imagine they want to win in that building, but I just think that knowing that the quarterback is going to be potentially the position that can hold them back this season, I don't know. I mean, I think you allow Spencer Rattler to play early. If it doesn't work out very well, you give Shough some time to play and you go from there. But the record is going to determine, I think, a lot about what the future of this team is going to look like. And I just don't see either of these guys, honestly, as the long-term answer for the quarterback of the future for the Saints.
So just to be clear, Lance, would you, if you were making this decision, right, would you look at it as, I want to start week 1 with Tyler Shough because we think he could be the future, we think he may have a higher ceiling, or are you focusing and prioritizing the right now as opposed
right
to
now? I'm going to prioritize the right now because I do feel like this roster has some potential. I'm not saying we have a Super Bowl roster because I don't believe that, but I think the roster has potential. And if Spencer Rattler can play at a level that is, decent, I think we have a chance to win some games. Now, obviously, health is going to be paramount. The offensive line is going to have to hold up. We're going to have to be able to run the football. I mean, there's a lot of variables that are associated with the early success for this season, but I just think Spencer Rattler is more ready today than Tyler Shough is. And I don't think it would hurt Shough to be able to sit and watch and learn a little bit before throwing him into the fire and potentially sacrificing him. I don't think that would bode well for him for the long term for his career. But I think that Rattler is just more ready now. That's it. I don't know. I don't want to talk about his ceiling versus the other guy's ceiling because really, we don't know what is that, right? I just feel like today, if I'm rolling the ball out week 1, I'm rocking with Rattler because I do feel like he's a little more ready right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, I feel like there's not a bad choice in terms of what direction that they want to go in. I'm just excited to see what direction they do go in because I feel like it'll say a lot about what we're going to see over the next year, obviously, because that's the starting quarterback of the team, but also what it says about, the decision making the next couple of years. It's interesting, and I'm kind of glad that they're done playing games just so they can make a decision and we can move on because I'm tired of talking about Spencer Rattler versus Tyler Shough. I want to talk about literally anything else. And that's what we're going to do coming up next after this little break. We're going to come back and talk about, some other guys that stood out, either, good or bad, I guess, because there's plenty of both in today's game. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes, unwarranted advice on whether you start your second-round rookie quarterback or the guy that's essentially a rookie but has a little bit more experience. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real, personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, jumping back in, let's talk a little bit about some other players that stood out. Darian, someone that is on the roster bubble that you think after today's game has to be on the roster.
The player I was really looking forward to watching today, probably kind of falls in that line, is Devin Neal. I was really excited to see because he was out of camp for the majority of it. Didn't get to play in any preseason games. So to me, this was his one opportunity to slide into that RB3 spot. I think that you got obviously Kamara and Kendre as 1 and 2. I think that Jones is going to come in as a running back 4 return specialist guy. But then you had Edwards-Helaire, you had Akers and Neal, who I thought were going to compete for that RB3. And I really wanted to see something from Neal because it was his only opportunity to make a statement. And I feel like I saw it because there's guys who, and I thought Lance brought up a great point. When it comes to running back, sometimes you see it, right? And I think for a couple of years, take out the injuries, but you saw it with Kendre. even in the beginning of this preseason, when when blocking wasn't great, you saw it with Kendra. Stat line didn't really add up, but you saw yards after contact. You saw it making people miss. You could just see it, and it passed the eye test. And I felt like Devin Neal passed the eye test today. I thought that he was assertive. I thought he had good vision. I thought that they used him in short yardage situations. I remember on one of the keeps that Tyler Shough had, I thought that Devin Neal was about to break outside and take the edge. Turns out that, they would have got me if I was on the field. I would have messed up and saw that wrong. But I thought that Devin Neal was about to get around the edge. He looks good, right? At the end of the day, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I like him. Cam Akers, I like him. But they're veterans who I do think you can get back onto the practice squad. And then secondly, I don't think they ever had a moment that made me raise my eyebrows, and definitely not multiple moments. And we've all been watching sports, and we've seen that where somebody does something, we go, okay. And you just raise your eyebrows and you note that. And I felt like when Devin Neal got the ball, it felt different. So if it's a young guy who's going to come in and he's towards the back end of his positional group, I think Devin Neal is one of those guys who fits the mold. And I saw what I liked out of him today.
I completely agree.
I love what I saw from him. And to your point, he's a draft pick, right? He's a 4-year starter at Kansas, almost 5,000 rushing yards and almost 50 touchdowns. So obviously he's a productive back. He's got talent. And I think he did enough today, not just to make this roster, but if the Saints were foolish enough to cut him, he's making somebody else's roster because somebody is going to pick him up off of waivers. And you are 100% correct about Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Cam Akers, veteran players that probably would not get claimed on waivers per se, but would definitely have an opportunity to sign to the practice squad as a veteran presence in that room in the case that somebody goes down. I don't see them being able to cut Devin Neal and stash him on the practice squad. Like it's not like he had 15, 20 carries today, right? Like he only had a couple of touches, but in those touches, you saw burst, you saw explosion, you saw elusiveness. He had guys bouncing off of him, missed tackles, the ball that he caught out of the backfield and just kind of one step dead leg the DB and ran around him for a first down. Like that's what you want to see. Like those are the types of plays that excite you, where a defender is in position to make a play and the ball carrier just leaves them in the dust and the guy goes and makes a first down or something greater. Like that's what you want to see from your playmakers. And I think you're dead on with that. He was on my list and definitely somebody that I was looking forward to seeing because I remember him in college, but not being able to see him throughout this preseason. It's like, okay, is that going to translate into, professional football? And clearly we saw that today. I think he's going to be really good.
I do too.
Yeah, it was 5 carries and 7 catches. And I feel like I remember every single touch. Or not all of them great because one of them ended with Landon Young going down. And that is another guy that, that offensive line, if the starting health was obviously already such a big thing for this offensive line. But with Landon Young going down, I saw that Shane Lemieux was limping at one point. The backup offensive line may have lost 5 guys already. It's Will Clapp, Nick Saldiveri, Landon Young, and then we'll have to see what's going on with Shane Lemieux. But, man, it is a rough look for the backup offensive line because now – Landon Young was going to get a lot of play at swing tackle. Now you think about who that's going to be. Is that Dylan Radins? That's someone that I think looks good at guard, but he has struggled a lot at tackle. Do you go with like Josiah Azirum? It's a tough thing that was already a little tough, but now the starting offensive line really must stay healthy. And now Trevor Penning not even fully ready for week 1, or it's in question. It's going to be tough.
Well, yeah, and losing guys in the last preseason game is like the worst possible thing. Like you're already generally there's going to be some guys that are sitting out, and other guys that you don't want to have to play more than whatever the number of plays that you have scheduled for them. But the injuries happen, and you have to put guys in, and every single time somebody stays on the ground, you're like, oh no, like. It's nerve-wracking as a fan, as an agent. I had two guys that I'm representing that are playing for the Broncos. So I'm clearly watching this game with like a couple different lenses on, trying to first obviously hope that, the Saints are doing well and the Saints win. But secondarily, watching my guys on the Broncos and even beyond them making plays or playing well, making sure that they stay healthy, because it is like, and my partner actually represents Landon Young. And so when he went down, I texted him, I'm like, did you see Landon Young? And he's like, oh man, like, it's just, it's a terrible feeling, obviously, if you're working with them, but it's even more as a fan, because it's like, dang, that's another guy that goes down. How are we going to replace that guy? It's tough, man. But that's the business, and guys go down. It's professional football. It's not professional pillow fighting out there. So just a necessary evil that goes along with the space.
Yeah. Are there any other go ahead, Darren?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think that when you look at the offensive line keep going down, it makes you really happy that a guy like Torricelli Simpkins was able to step up, because yes, you have somebody who drops, and I know it doesn't always equal, because you're not looking at Simpkins to step out if Luanga or Banks goes out, but it's just a representation of how training camp can be, where guys go down to injuries, some other guys step up. Torricelli comes in, and now he could be the backup center. And I thought it was actually really notable that the Saints just traded for Fortner. And I kept trying to remind myself to go look to see if I saw 63 out there. But one thing I noticed is that you saw Simpkins as the second team center. So it looks like even with that trade, that's going to be something that's a high value for him, and maybe somewhere that they position him as McCoy's first backup if he goes down, which obviously we don't want. And we saw the offensive line, the starting offensive line, look much better with McCoy in today. And like that was noticeable, because it's not as if they didn't start, right? And I think that gets kind of lost at times, because the starting offensive line minus McCoy did play snaps in the first and second preseason game. And I didn't think that it was really impressive. But then you look at when McCoy steps in, all of a sudden, Kendre Miller has lanes to run through. All of a sudden, you get pushed to run the football. And while I'm probably still not overjoyed about the unit, I feel way better than I did a week ago, because a week ago I'm sitting here like, yeah, I don't care who starts. Matter of fact, walk me out there. It's going to be the same thing, right? Like that's how I was feeling a week ago. And now with McCoy in there, we saw it last year, and we saw the positive version of that in today's game. So I wanted to mention those two things: depth of Torricelli Simpkins, and then also the addition of Eric McCoy.
Well, and look, imagine any starting offensive line group without their best player.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it could be the best offensive line in football, but if they don't have their best player, which might be their left tackle, their left guard, whoever, like if you take that guy out of the equation, then that offensive line is not anywhere near as good. And if you put that best player in, he doesn't just make the group look better, but he makes everybody around him play better because of his presence and what he can do and what he adds to the fold. So I totally agree. And I mean, it is something to be positive about and look forward to as the regular season comes around. It's like, okay, this group should be okay, if not one of the better groups in the National Football League. And I know we're tight on time for this segment, but I do have a guy that wasn't really even on my radar as much, but when I look at the position group in total, one that I think could use an additional talented player, Rajon Wright.
Let's go. That's
bro. Yeah. They did a little recap of like his game, like later in the fourth quarter. Dude balled out. And if you have another guy, another corner that's capable of getting in the game and making plays and being around the ball and is a solid tackler, like I was like, yeah, like I remember reading about him, and he's had some good practices here and there throughout training camp, but to see it in a game, seems to be fearless. And like, I just really enjoyed watching him play today. Being in position, not giving up any big plays. You're going to have a number of different corners. But an extra guy that can also play special teams, which all corners do. I really enjoyed watching him play today. And I think that he should definitely be on this roster once it comes out.
Do we have time for a question, Dilly, or I can wait?
Yeah, no,
So
let's wait. Actually, hold that. Let's go to break and then just come
Okay.
back. We'll keep this conversation going with same segments, whatever. But yeah, let's jump back. We'll be right back. Continue, pick up this conversation coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. There's not a ton to be certain about with the Saints this year on fantasy football, but I think one person for sure is Blake Groupie, because I think this team's going to kick probably 1 million field goals. He'll be a target for me, and I'm sure the rest of the show, because we're playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first time playing it or you're a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days in August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's just one team left standing. With the season right around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play your head-to-head private leagues or maybe join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, jumping back into it, Darian, go ahead with your question.
So I wanted to ask, when it comes to Rajon Wright versus Rico Payton, and just thinking how many cornerbacks that they may keep. Lance, I don't know necessarily how much you've seen the special teams of each, but I know I haven't been able to see a lot of it. I haven't been able to hear a lot of it. But how are you weighing Rico Payton versus Rajon Wright if it comes down to that in the final cuts?
Well, I think I don't think either of them are special team stalwarts. Like, I don't think they're game wreckers on special teams. So I think you would evaluate them based on what you see at corner. Mm-hmm. If it comes down to it and somebody goes down or somebody's goes down, we might have two hurt corners like we've had in the past. Who do we trust more to put in the game over those two? And that's kind of where I would go with it. Maybe they've seen some things in practice that they would say one guy has a more of an upside on teams than the other. But as far as watching these games, I haven't really seen one stand out at all, really, on special teams. So I think I would gauge that by who is the better defender at corner. They're both young guys. They both have shown potential and flash, but I just think the game that Rajon Wright played today is like, okay, like this dude is a gamer. Like,
yeah.
It's not just
kept seeing 25.
Yeah, for sure. And the first play he made, I was like, that's Rajon Wright. I was like, oh shoot. And then he kept making play after play after play. And obviously they have tough decisions to make, and how many corners are on the roster, how many safeties are on the roster. So like all those things are factors in it. But you can never have too many corners ever. Like that's I don't think a coach or a general manager has ever said, oh, we've got too many corners. Like that's not a thing. Like, because it's the National Football League in 2025 and beyond. It's a passing football league. You got to have guys that can cover those receivers. And I think Rajon Wright did a great job of that today.
Well, while we're talking about corners, I do want to give a quick shout out. Quincy Riley, ball hawk, first interception, first of many. So shout out. But
I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more on that return, though. It left a little more to like the amount. Like, come on, man. There's a little more meat on that bone. Let's see you make a little move on that offensive lineman that's right in front of you. I know it was a tight space there after he had the pick, but I want to see him get loose out there with the rock in his hand. But like you said, hopefully first of many to come.
Yeah, and you saw who got the pressure on that play, Vernon Broughton, who I think is starting to come along a little bit better in these last two preseason games. And honestly, this Saints draft class is starting to look a little impressive, starting to be a little hopeful when you start going through, especially in those first, I'd say, well, you got to include Devin Neal. So really those first 6 rounds, it's starting to look like you have some talent. Stutzman.
And Fidel Diggs later.
Fidel Diggs. I like Diggs.
Yeah,
I do. I like it, but I'm going to let you transition to where you was going. I don't want to stomp all over what you're
No, you're good. I was just going to bring us over real quick because we were talking a little bit about special teams helping you make the roster. I wanted to talk a little bit about linebacker, because now there's been a stiff competition towards the end. You have your Nephi Sewells, your DeMarco Jacksons, Jalen Fords, and then Isaiah Stallbird, who does pop on special teams. Where do they go now at linebacker? Because Jalen Ford has made plays. He didn't have a huge, loud day-to-day, but he's been really consistent. But then you do have Isaiah Stallbird, who was playing ahead of him today and having that specialty. How do you all think that this is going to turn out at linebacker?
Well, yeah, Stallbird was with the second group today, which was ahead of Nephi Sewell and Jackson, right? Like they were in the group after him. So
I think he was I think he was like ahead of most of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one that's totally reading into what group these guys are in, especially at that position, because you never really know. But I just think that the things that Isaiah Stallbird has proven that he can do and be on special teams, like I feel like he's a lock. I mean, he's too good on special teams. Like and then when he plays on defense, he flies around and makes plays. So you want a guy at that position that can do both. And he seems to, fit that bill. Where do you go from there? I honestly, I don't know, but I think it's a good problem to have that there's kind of a log jam at backup linebacker, that they legitimately have 5 or 6 guys that could make the roster in addition to DeMario and Pete Werner. I think that's not a bad problem to have. And again, some of these guys will get cut, but I would imagine would end up back on the practice squad. So in the chance that there is an injury, you could see those guys throughout this season. But I mean, these are all tough decisions. Like it's rare that cut down day is easy. Like the very back end of the roster, super easy. They could probably trim 20 guys, 25 guys even, without even really batting the eyelash. But it's those last 12 or so guys that you're like, and it might not even be that many. It might be 8, 7 or 8 guys that are kind of on the edge. Is this guy better than this guy? Then they're looking at other factors, contract. I mean, all those things really matter if it's super close. But I just think that Isaiah Stallbird, like if there's one guy that I'm picking that's not a starter that I think is a lock, I would say it's probably him.
And on top of that is, I know you say you don't want to read too much into where he's playing, but not only was he playing with the second unit, he was standing out. And I think that that's really important because, you can get in there and play with the second guys, and it says it could mean you're just getting the opportunity. Maybe you and Nephi are close, and we want to see how do you perform with this unit, right? So it could be an evaluation, but when you see him play ahead of Nephi and you see him pop, then it's like, okay, so he's not just a special teams guy. He's a guy that I feel like I could have on my backup rotation at linebacker next to Stutzman. I do think that, like you said, Stallbird is a lock. He could have been the guy who was an answer to the question you asked earlier, Dylan, where you're talking about guys who are on that roster bubble who feel like a lock now. I think that Stallbird has shown over multiple games, too. It's not just like he played well today. He has athleticism. He flies around the field, and it's really hard to not notice him. I feel like if you're not noticing Isaiah Stallbird on the field over these last couple of games, you're probably trying not to see him because he has popped up at multiple moments. So, I love the way he shoots the gap. He's aggressive. And I just continue to reflect back on his athleticism. I continue to reflect back on his aggressiveness, right? Because he has speed. And I think that's one of the things that the Saints have missed at linebacker. I know you have DeMario. I would love to have 2. This isn't a conversation about the starters, but I think that having 2 fast, athletic sideline to sideline type of linebackers would be a good addition. Once again, not going to talk about the starters, so this is not me advocating for you to push him to the starting lineup. It's just about the traits you would like to have at the position. And Stallbird has that on top of the special teams ability. So I do think you have to put him in there. And then you have a conversation of what do you do with Nephi, DeMarco, Ford? What do you do with those 3? But I think you have 4 guys are going to be on your team as far as linebacker go, and then you can decide between the other 3.
Yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit about starters because I do want to ask y'all, and if y'all have any questions for us to get to the next segment, closing out this segment, drop a question. Use hashtag welcome Darian to make sure we know it's for the show. I want to ask y'all, we're, past the preseason. We've seen 3 games of the Kellen Moore era. It's the preseason, but still. Are y'all feeling better about the team now than y'all were, entering the preseason? How has the past couple weeks of games made y'all feel? Do y'all feel the same, better, or worse? Start with Lance.
I would say I feel better. And Darren brought it up earlier. Like, this draft class is looking pretty good, and not pretty good as in like, oh, these guys are going to be great in the future. Like, no, like these guys should contribute this season, right? And that doesn't mean that these guys are going to win games. That doesn't mean that I think Tyler Shough is going to be the starting quarterback, but I do think watching these guys play, one, they look like they belong. So, I mean, that's passing the first test. And 2, the guys have made plays. It is encouraging to see. And another thing that's kind of stood out to me, even though this is Kellen Moore's first time as a head coach, the team looks really well coached. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot of stupid penalties, the pre-snap infractions. The guys seem to be getting in and out of the huddle. Like, it looks like a well-coached group. And I think that if you looked at the Denver Broncos today, you would see the exact same thing, but that's from a coach that's coached over 30 years in the National Football League. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's a good thing. That's something to be encouraged about. And it's something that I think a lot of times gets overlooked, is people just assume that all of the teams are very well coached because they're NFL teams. That's not necessarily the case, especially with the first-year head coach. So to simply answer your question, I definitely feel more encouraged or feel good about this team, better than I did, let's just say, before training camp, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I wish I could be as simple as Lance. But I know I feel the same about 2025, but I feel better about 2026 and beyond, right? Because I do feel like I've seen guys in the draft class that have performed well. I do feel like that first game, the first couple snaps of pinning at guard, I liked what I saw. I saw things that made me feel optimistic. I do see things that say if the quarterback can get going, then we could be a team that wins more games than we're projected to. The only problem is I don't see enough from the quarterback to say that they're going to get going. So it's difficult for me to increase my 2025 projection, right? Because that is such an important role, right? That is an important position to play, because you're going to have to get the ball to the receivers. And I am a Rattler fan. I do think that he deserves to be the starter, but you see that throw to Shaheed where Shaheed got room on Patrick Surtain. And if that ball is on Shaheed, I see all the momentum of everybody going this way, and then Shaheed's going that way, and we know the speed he has. There's a chance that nobody was able to stop their feet and get to Shaheed in enough time to stop him from getting to the end zone. Yeah. Those type of plays can make or break. And I don't know if the Saints have enough to miss those plays, right? Like, if you miss that play.
They don't. They don't. I'll answer that.
Let's not tiptoe, right? Let's not tiptoe around it. The Saints don't have enough to miss those plays. And I need a quarterback that's going to show me that I didn't, when he missed that play, I didn't say, all right, I'm sure he's going to get it next time. I don't know, right? Like, I want somebody who's like, if Breeze misses that ball, it's like, okay, we'll see that again. And that's not fair to compare them to Breeze, but you guys know what I mean. Some quarterbacks, when they have a bad pass, it just feels like a bad pass. Unfortunately, that ball right there felt like, all right, are we going to see more of that on a regular basis? So I can't necessarily say I feel better this year, but there are young talent. Jonas Sanker is a player who I like a lot. And let me rave about him for a second. The aggressiveness that he shows on the field, the speed, the ability to rally. One of the plays from the second preseason game was when there was a screen pass thrown in his direction. And not only did he tackle the screen of the player who caught the screen, he ran through the guy trying to block him. He didn't even get off the block. He just tackled 2 people at once, right? Like, these are the aggressive plays that I like out of Sanker. And one play that doesn't get noticed is in that first preseason game where he was in man coverage on in coverage on a wide receiver. He reach overs and has that pass breakup. There are superstar plays like the pick six the interception that we take a look at in the second game, but he has to play in and play out as well. It's not just, oh, this highlight and this highlight and this highlight. No, you see Sanker, you see 33 popping up on a regular basis. And I know you got Reed, you got Blackman, you got Taylor. I understand that little triangle between slot and safety is somewhere that we feel pretty solid at. But I think it's going to be difficult to keep Sanker off the field. Not in 2026. It's going to be difficult to keep him off the field in 2025. This guy is extremely talented. So I just wanted to rave about that while we were talking about the draft class. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling about 2025. The quarterbacks can elevate, be more consistent. Cool. We'll have a different conversation. But until they show me that, I'm not in the business of being optimistic just to say I was being optimistic. I have to be realistic about it.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I definitely think that this year, I feel way better about the defense because I think that I think this defense could, if there was a different offense maybe, or a different or more just someone or a team that has a little bit more experience on offense, I'd feel much better about this team overall because I think this defense could win games. It's just going to be about, can they capitalize on the opportunities on the other side of the ball? And yeah, that's just a big question mark for right now. But we'll continue talking about this team, talking about the preseason and the next coming days coming up next after this break. Lance, I wanted to start with something a little bit differently. It's something one of our comments said in the last episode. It made me think it would be interesting to talk about. We're not going to see you talk to you a little bit anymore before cut down day. I wanted to see if you could give some insight or some feeling about the pressures and the how cut down day feels for an NFL team and NFL players.
Well, look, man, I can't even begin to explain what the feeling is like. I would say the ultimate level of anxiety, stress, the feeling of the unknown, the uncertainty. And the craziest part about it is the guys who are on the bubble that end up making the team, nobody tells them. So you're literally waiting around for your phone to ring the entire day because obviously nobody's at the facility over the next couple of days, and they will call and say, hey, we're going to release you. You need to bring your playbook in. Coach is going to see you. The general manager generally is going to see you. So if you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting the entire day and your phone doesn't ring, it's a great thing, but the anxiety never leaves because the phone could ring at any moment, right? My rookie year, I was cut after the third preseason game, so I didn't even make it to this point with the Browns. So my second year, so the 2006 season, Sean Payton was the head coach, did well in training camp, and it was one of those situations where I'm literally waiting by the phone the entire day, and my phone never rang. But I had a good enough agent that at the time was like, hey, making the initial roster is one thing, but making the roster for week one is a whole nother thing, right? Because there's a group of, and I think we mentioned it at the last show, there's going to be over 900 guys that get cut in the next 3 or 4 days. So you might make that initial cut down, but there might be somebody from another team that gets cut that either plays your position or doesn't even, that the team is going to claim, and they'll grab through the waiver wire. Once they claim a player, somebody else on the active roster, so the original roster, has to get cut. You can't ever carry more than the 53. So sure, it's a good feeling to make the initial roster, but he said, hey, we got to get to week one, which back then wasn't nearly as long as it is now. We had a weekend off, and then we were right into week one, which I thought was a good thing. less time for them to make any more decisions. But it's an uneasy feeling. And being that I was cut 5 different times in my career, it sucks. There's no way around it. You play football your entire life, and this is probably beyond a catastrophic career-ending type injury. It's the worst thing that can happen to you in your career is, one, either being in the building and seeing the Turk walking around and grabbing you, or 2, being at home, feeling good, hoping, praying, wishing that you make the roster, and then you see that 504 pull up on your phone number or on your phone, and you're like, oh no. The good thing about it is nowadays it's so much easier for other teams to have access to the tape, to be able to see you, for there to potentially be another opportunity somewhere else. And the fact that there's 16 practice squad roster spots for guys, whereas, back in my day, there was 8 practice squad guys. So I guess that's
and it was way more restrictive on who could be on practice squad.
And it was only guys that had a certain level of service. There was no veteran players on practice squads back then, which I always thought was foolish.
There's been a lot of changes over the past couple of years that have been a little bit confusing. I think the veteran practice squad and extending this practice squad, it's great.
Yeah. There's six guys on the practice squad that can have unlimited service. So they could be a 10, 15-year vet, but they could still be on the practice squad. And then obviously the other 10 guys that are on can have 2 or less years. So it's some things are changing for the better. One thing that I wish would change, and I know we're not supposed to talk about it in this segment, but there's 53 guys on the active roster. Why don't 53 guys dress on game day? It's beyond me. And I've had conversations with my agent partner about this. And he said that was tied to kind of like older CBAs where guys' contracts were way more affected by game day, active play time, bonuses, etc. It still happens some now, but not nearly as much as it did in the past. And I feel like that's something that the NFLPA should address when it comes time to the next collective bargaining agreement, because they as a league preach player safety. Well, why should we be restrictive as far as how many guys are dressed? Game day active and inactive is a silly thing to me. And it's not like we're talking about 25 guys that are inactive. It's 7 to 8 guys that are inactive. So why wouldn't we allow those guys to dress and or play in the games as well? So just a weird thing. But to your question, it doesn't feel good waiting for that phone to ring or praying that it doesn't ring.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, that's why it is going to be tough, having these conversations. It's tough to, talk about these guys. Man, they're not going to make the roster. They didn't do enough. It's a tough conversation. But Darren, I want to ask you a little bit more about the team. One of the position groups that I've had my eye on, it's just everyone's had their own, just because it's the biggest question mark blob on the team. Tight end. How do you feel about Trayden Welch? Maliki Motaval had a couple nice catches. Seth Green, even Jack Stoll had a nice catch. How is this tight end room working out for you right now?
I think it's going to be Johnson, Stoll, Welch. First off, isn't it always weird when you see a new player wear a legendary player's number at the same position? Like, it was so strange when I seen 80 at Tyson. Thought that guy just got done rolling across. But no, when it came to the tight ends, I think Welch has made a couple of plays here and there. I think especially in these last 2, he had that impressive catch from Shough in last week's game, and then he had a nice catch as well. This one wasn't as difficult, but it was good to see him get open. It was good to see the play construction on that too. If we're going to talk coaching from that aspect, to just have open players, it felt like we didn't have open guys enough over the past couple of years. That was a refreshing thing to see. But at tight end, it still does feel like we're going to see a lot of Juwan doing the heavy lifting as far as receiving goes. And maybe as you add receivers in, that feels less daunting because you have more wide receivers to handle that. You have guys like Kendre, Alvin. I'm going to throw Devin Neal in there occasionally because I did really like that catch. So you have more receiving threats. Maybe you feel okay until Hill and Moreau get back. But for me, I just feel like Welch is going to be that third guy, and I feel like Stoll's going to be that blocker, right? So that's why I don't include him in that conversation. And I think you may see a lot of them, depending on how much they want to run the football. I think you'll see a lot of 2 tight ends on the field, but receiving purely, I think is going to be heavily dependent on Juwan. So you're going to need him to have a faster start than we've seen him had in recent seasons, and just more consistency, more involvement in the game plan. It felt like there was games where they didn't even try to use them. There's games where you didn't have any targets at the beginning of the season, and that feels just like malpractice. You have to use your guys, and once they start going down to injury, then yeah, you're using them. But you don't have Shaheed, you don't have Olave. Of course, you're going to use Johnson. I mean, when everybody is there, I need us to use Johnson. I need them to use him in the middle of the field. I wish that Welch was the guy that I was like, oh yeah, we have a secondary guy until the 2 injured tight ends come back. But no, I think that it's going to be heavily dependent on Juwan. And with this new contract, he's better deliver. So yeah, that's how I feel about that position.
Well, while we're talking about play calling, I want to switch up a little bit. Lance, I want to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of this conversation between Shough and Rattler has been with the play calling, because I do think that play calling is very discernible between the two. I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts or reasons as to why it looks different, or if it says anything about what the coaching staff is thinking right now.
I mean, I don't know that is important from an outsider's perspective. Like, only they know what particular plays that they're planning to run, and then obviously the defense dictates what you're able to do, right? So like, if there's a bombs away shot play that's called for Spencer Rattler, but the protection breaks down, then obviously he's not going to be able to throw the ball down the field. So I think I would say it's unfair to say that the play calling is different for one than the other. But maybe it is different, and maybe it's different on purpose because they know what they're getting from Spencer Rattler in a specific set of plays, and they need to see what it looks like for Tyler Shough when he gets that specific set of plays. But I mean, if anything, as far as the play calling goes, I feel like Kellen Moore has done a decent job of first-time head coach, game manager, calling plays in the officials' ears, trying to get an explanation as to what they're doing, why they're doing, thinking about throwing the red challenge flag, even though the play was already reviewed. Like, he's in midseason form. Like, that's what you want to see from him. And it doesn't seem to be, obviously there hasn't been the regular season drama yet. But you want a first-time head coach who's also an offensive play caller to be able to handle the whole workload and not just be the guy that's calling the plays and is not able to be around and make decisions for the rest of the game.
And then let me add this. Sorry, real quick. So one thing I would like to see with Rattler is I think that he can move a little bit. I would like to see him use his legs a little bit more in the way that they use for Shough, where you've seen a couple of read options. You've seen them put that RPO in. I would like to see that with Rattler. I think that coming into the season, I thought both quarterbacks could move better than Carr did, obviously, and I wanted to see their legs be a part of the game plan. We saw that a little bit towards the end with Shough, and I would like to see, whether it's Rattler or Shough as a starter, that to continue going into the regular season.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing that has stood with both quarterbacks now with the play calling is I think the play calling and the design and everything looks the best with the starting offense on the field. Like, I love what they're doing to get Olave and Shaheed. Obviously, that play didn't work out, but he was open. I like what they're doing to get these guys space and get these guys the ball early and often. And whenever they do have the starting offense on the field, I feel like that's more important than anything than like, oh man, they called 2 RPOs for Tyler Shough. That means they think that Spencer Rattler can't run the ball. It's an interesting conversation, but I do like what they're doing whenever they have the team on the field.
Yeah. Can I address something that Darian said in the last segment?
No,
I'm not going in on you. I'm gonna explain what you talked about with Spencer Rattler missing on that Shaheed throw, the skinny post. Mm-hmm. It was a 2nd and 14, I believe. We had just gotten the first down. We were around the 40-yard line, the minus 40-yard line. Like, not only do you have to hit those plays for this team, who I don't think is going to score a ton of points, like, that was a scoring type play. And I don't mean that was going to be a home run. Shaheed's going to score a touchdown for sure. But he's not only is he going to get the first down, but he's going to get yards after the catch, which is going to put us in scoring position. Even if we end up with a 20-yard game, right? And we're at the plus 40 now, 55-yard, 56, 7-yard field goals are well within range now for modern day NFL kickers. And what happens is he misses that throw. It's now 3rd and 14. The Broncos are not going to give up that play again, or really any other play that's going to complete for 14 yards. We don't have Drew Brees at quarterback to be able to manipulate the defense and be like, okay, we missed that one, we'll get the next one. Like, that's not just we're going to have to punt the ball back to them. That's taking points off the board for us. This team cannot afford to do that. So whoever the starting quarterback is going to have to hit those types of throws on a consistent basis for this team to be able to compete. And to see him miss that throw, it was not good. Rose.
Ross is here.
Literally 1 minute, sorry.
Ross, okay, 1 minute. Who's the starting quarterback?
I think Tyler Shough had the better day today, but I think right now it's still Spencer Rattler to start. But I think eventually you're going to Tyler Shough at some point this season. I think we all know that, but I think he showed you a good bit today. I don't think either one of them necessarily stood out. You know what I mean? But I think Shough had the stronger day, but I still think that it's not enough to supplant Rattler from having the stronger overall offseason.
Yeah. Any other big takeaways?
Kendre Miller locked up his roster spot. I think that's a fact.
Yeah.
Kai Kroger might have locked up his roster spot, holding those kicks for Blake Groupie. I know that seems super small, but that's how we knew Matthew Hayball won last year, and we saw that again here. And I think that the Saints defense is going to be maybe a little bit better than we thought, particularly in the front. They just got to remain disciplined. They can't have those penalties that kind of take away from what it was that they were getting done. Got to tackle those quarterbacks too when you get your hands on them, man. Like a continued issue. I don't know why we're still seeing this.
Oh, man. Ross, the most important question today. What's your favorite thing about Darian?
My favorite thing about Darian is how hard he works. Dude is a grinder.
Man.
He is a hard worker, and he is always looking for how to improve. He's not just working to do it a second time or a third time. He works to do it better for a first time every single time, and that's one of the things I love about him.
You gonna make me thank you.
And that's why exactly why we had him come through for the today's Saints Squad show. Thank you, Darian, for joining. It won't be the last time for sure. Thank you again for joining. Lance, great as always. Ross, it was great having you for the entire show. Thank you for listening to the Saints Squad show. Check out me, Ross, John, Lance, and Darian on our socials for the latest. We'll be right back here on Thursday, where maybe they'll have a quarterback decision. Maybe we're still talking about who they should pick. We don't know yet, but they'll have a decision. Who knows if we'll know it? But until then, keep up with Locked On Saints and Ross Jackson for the latest on your Saints needs.